Time for a change.
I'm going to call up Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to begin by commenting on the Minister's speech given just a few minutes ago concerning his belief that this is just a clarification of the law and not a law change. Nothing could be further than the truth. The reality is this. Clause 10 does use the words to avoid doubt, but that doesn't make it true. In fact, that term is superfluous and inappropriate because the clause doesn't just clarify, it actually makes a substantial addition, and it does so retrospectively. And I can prove this because the current section 15 says only this, quote, subject as hereinafter provided in this Act, any state housing land and any buildings or chattels held for state housing purposes may be disposed of by way of sale, lease or tenancy by the corporation. And only the first few words of clause 10 are repeated in section 15 as it now is. But the words are added, quote, if the land is disposed of as one of 4 specified categories of land which are listed. Now, Mr Speaker, the term state housing land means in section 2 of the Housing Act, and I quote, land that is for the time being held or set apart for state housing purposes, and includes land that at any material date was held or set apart for the purposes of Part 1 of the Housing Act 1919. And the term state housing purposes has a very long definition in section 2 of that Act, too long for me to quote here, but it has 3 land categories which are quite different to those which are stated in this bill. Look at them for yourself and you'll see that I'm right. Yet strangely, it is section 15 which is being amended, not the definition in section 2 of the Housing Act. So, what does that mean? It means that that definition still remains. So how will that sit with the new section 15.2? I say that it creates uncertainty. I say that it needs to go to a select committee because the select committee would sort out these sorts of things, and that is exactly what is not happening as a result of this process. So I say to the Minister, you may feel that this is just a clarification, but if you actually look carefully at what the bill actually does, you can see without any possible doubt that it is a substantial law change. Now, Mr Chairman, I want to go on to say this about the title, because that's really what we should be talking about here and not sidetracked by misinformation by the Minister. And the short title that I would suggest is one which would be far more descriptive than the one that is there. And it can't be short because this bill covers 2 completely different things in my opinion. So I would suggest the title should be Ensuring Continuation of Failed Government Policies in the hope it can find a way to make them work, and ensuring that government panic measures relating to the fast-track sale of state housing land prevail over the rights of people who have rights to offer back. Now that would actually describe what the bill is actually about. So why not have something like that? It may be very long, but it has to be long if it's actually going to inform people what this bill is about. And of course the government, I think, doesn't really want to inform people what it's about. It should. So let's take that name that I've suggested bit by bit, continuation of state housing areas. Now, they were originally 3 years, now to be 6. Are they failed? Yes, they are. 1,300 houses over 3 years, and the other statistics that are available show the same thing. So that's the evidence that they have failed. And the reason they have failed is the government refuses to directly invest in housing land adequately for the purposes of those state housing areas. That's New Zealand First policy. That's what should be done by this government, but it's not doing so. Now, the second part of the suggested title, it is a panic measure because here we are in urgency, no select committee scrutiny, and the government ought to have a good reason to change the law, but what we've got is a very loud silence. And in the process, Mr Chairman, what we have is people's rights being trodden on, rights that they should have for offer back. And that is a tragedy for law and order in this country. The government should actually be protecting people's rights, not removing them without any adequate reason being given.